Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next FOSSASIA chat here on YouTube about Google Summer of Code and FOSSASIA. Specifically, we are talking today about the Open Event project, and we are looking forward to your questions. We'll start this emission here with an introduction about the program and what we're doing with Open Event currently, and also like what are the goals over the next few months with Open Event. And I'm very glad to have here three of our mentors already in the chat. Additional mentors might join us later. By the way, my name is Mario. I'm one of the admins of the Google Summer of Code project here, and I'm glad to see here Abhinav Kare, Niranjan Rajendran, and Saptak Sengupta. Guys, could you quickly give an intro about yourself and what you do in the project before we head to the next step, talking about the project? Yeah, Saptak, do you want to start?
Okay, I'll start. So, hi, my name is Saptak Sengupta. I am a Python and JavaScript developer in the Open Event project. I have been mainly looking into the Open Event server side of the things. Apart from that, I also look into the front end and the web app part of it. I have been associated with FOSSASIA for around 3 years now and have been working in different projects of FOSSASIA. So, yeah, that's about me. Niranjan?
Yeah, so I'm Niranjan. I've been with FOSSASIA for the past 2.5 years, I guess. I work primarily with the Open Event project. I was working on the server a lot until I shifted over to the front-end project. So right now, my primary focus is on the project and on the front-end. So that's it. And yeah, I develop mostly JavaScript and Hyper.
Okay. I think enough.
Hi.
We also have you here on the phone. Yes.
My name is Abhinav, and I started with FOSSASIA around 2 years ago. I started contributing to the legacy Open Event server, and I did my GSoC with FOSSASIA last year, and I was involved in the Open Event front-end project. And this year, I hope to mentor students for the Open Event front-end, and hopefully finish it this time around. That is it.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. So let's quickly get into the project right away. What is the goal of Open Event? What is Open Event all about? And what will we be doing over the next few months? How will we involve our GSoC students here? A big box of questions. Yeah, please go ahead. Let's have this more as a conversation maybe before we take questions of GSoC students or anyone who's interested in the program. Niranjan, Saptak, do you want to give a bit an overview? What's our plan with Open Event and the different components?
Niranjan, you want to start?
Okay, sure. So the Open Event project was started as a GSoC project, I think 3 years back, with the goal of giving an open solution to managing events. So the primary reason why this project came into existence was FOSSASIA needed a solution for FOSSASIA's conference, and they had an idea of making a software, and that's how Open Event came into pictures. So that was the first initial implementation, and then the project had a big boom of contributors all of a sudden, and now it's a very big project with a lot of sub-projects. So a year back, we decided that it wasn't maintainable to have a monolithic app structure, and we decided to split into a server and a front-end project to give us a more API-oriented approach and DRY, which is do not repeat yourself. So right now, our application, just a second. Yeah. So right now, our application, the primary concern is the Open Event server and the front-end projects. So Open Event server provides us an application programming interface, which is API over API layer, which allows other client applications, which like the front-end or the Android application or the web application, to communicate with us with the primary data source and get the data or put more data. So that's the technical aspect of the Open Event project. And one of the cool things about the Open Event project is we have actually used our own project for FOSSASIA conference, which is conducted every year. So not many projects can tell that for themselves, right? So which means that we have an idea of what we are doing. And Mario has a lot of experience in organizing events and everything. So he has actually been a very important person in guiding us as to what is actually required in the project and what all does an event organizer look for when he or she needs an application to organize it. So that's what Open Event is. Saptak, over to you.
Yeah, so I guess Niranjan has already given you a good overview about Open Event. Now, what we are thinking, like, there might be a little confusion when you go to the GitHub repository, because some people are like, okay, what is the code that we are using right now, which is live and which is the thing into production? So I would like to say a little about it. So Open Event Legacy is the repository which is actually live in eventyear.com right now. So if you go to eventyear.com, the code that you see live is Open Event Legacy. Now, we have actually last year moved into two different projects, as Niranjan said, after decoupling. So one project is Open Event Server, one project is Open Event Frontend. So as long as there is not a breaking change in Open Event Legacy, I would really recommend everyone to not really focus on Open Event Legacy, because what we right now want is to bring into the scene the decoupled server. It's already it has gone a lot of way along and it is almost ready, but it's just that little push needed to deploy it and make it production ready. So we need to focus more on Open Event Server. And some of the things that we discussed in FOSSASIA conference this year is there are a lot of features already there. We know that these are the features that we need, and we actually should be focusing on working out these features first rather than trying to implement more features on top of it. So there are features we know that, say for example, we need a scheduler, but maybe the scheduler doesn't work properly. And we know that scheduling is an important part of event management. So what we should really focus on is making the primary things work first, making that complete, deploy a version which can be pushed for beta testing and stuff like that. And then we can actually add on features okay, this feature is also good to have, and maybe we can add on. So that way, I guess we can really push the development. We can actually deploy the code that we have right now and move away from the legacy code. And also we can have a good idea of what we need next, instead of just fixing bugs again and again and having many features and none of which work. So I guess that's the idea of Open Event that I would like to convey. Mario, I guess your mic is mute.
Thanks. So I just wanted to say that Shubham is joining us here. So thanks for Shubham for joining us as well. And I would also like you to give us some insights to how you think we should be working now with the students here in GSoC. And I would like you guys to answer the question: what is expected of students in GSoC? I mean, how should they start now? We have the program. Let's say I get accepted. So I think everyone should get actually the whole stack running and provide a link to the team, so we can be sure that everyone has a running deployment on a server somewhere in the internet. So, for example, that would be one thing that I would like to see. What do you think about this, and what are your ideas to get students started now?
Developing, running the server locally or the front end locally would be the first step. And one thing I'd like to mention to the students is they need to use the project extensively. The thing that happens is students don't use the project to, let's say, create a sample event. They don't know what the purpose of a scheduler is, and they start solving the bugs. They don't know what the whole thing is about, so they can't properly solve that bug.
Saptak, do you want to answer. What would you expect, or what do you expect of a student is starting now? What are the first steps?
Yeah, so as first step, I would say is, firstly, I think like we already have a good enough documentation, so as to say, so right away go ahead and start deploying both the projects. If you are actually focusing just on the server part of it, you don't really need to deploy the front end, and if you are focusing just on front end, you can actually use the server that is already deployed and use the APIs from there. Apart from that, you can actually read out the API server documentation and get your local instance up so that it starts working, and then you can, like, once you get it started, like you have working. Actually, we did a really good thing last year in GSoC, as far as I remember. So there are, if you go to YouTube and you search for Open Event Server videos, you can actually see videos by the, like, the demo videos of the GSoC students from last year. So that would be a really good point for you to start, so that you can get an idea about all the things that the Open Event Server provides. Same goes with Open Event Frontend, I think. So for Open Event Server and Open Event Frontend, once you have the local instance up and running, you can actually go through all the features, see the codes. They are pretty much modularized. After you have gone through the codes, you can actually go to issues, find some issues which works and stuff. Also, if you see, like, in documentation, you are facing some kind of problem, it's really great way to start. Like, you can say, hey, this is a documentation issue which actually followed, but it didn't work. I had to do this workaround. So maybe you can add that workaround to the documentation as well, so that we can improve our documentation, so the next guy doesn't face that problem. So that's what GSoC is all about. That's what open source is all about. Like, you deploy. Oh, one more thing is, like, when you are deploying your own instance, I said that yesterday also in Suzy video, is always fork your repository. Don't, like, just deploy the main repository of FOSSASIA, because then when you try to contribute, you have to do a lot of adding of URLs and stuff. So it's better you start off by forking your repository, learn a little about how to use Git and GitHub, and then get your instance ready. And then you can start off with issues, solve issues, interact with people. You can actually ask in Git channels what are the issues that we are actually focusing right now to solve. And that way you have a good idea how to solve and how to go about things. So I think that's a really good way to start off.
Yeah. Great. Niranjan? Or Abhinav, any input? Yeah, Niranjan, please go ahead.
Yes, tell me. Okay. Repeat. Okay, how do we start up with GSoC? So for GSoC this year, I want all these students. I mean, actually, at least they need to be familiar. Like Saptak said, you don't need to know server, but I would still suggest that you have at least an understanding. You don't need to install the server application on your machine, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't know anything about the server, right? So a lot of times in the past GSoC, we have seen that students who are working on the client project they just forget that there is a server project, and they think of the server project as a black box, and they think, we don't have to know anything about the server and we can just do our client. But that's not the case in this project, right? Because it's a very close-knit community, and we're not a big organization where we have like hundreds of people working on the server who will take care of everything. And so it's always best if students from the client projects like Android or web app have at least a basic understanding of what the server does, right? You just make an API, you make API request, but just know that what goes on behind the scenes in the server. And if you face an issue, don't just post something in the server channel saying, hey, that doesn't work. Try to give more inputs, right? And this year, a lot of people applied for Android project. So, these things apply to you guys, and kind of less people applied for servers. So if any of you from the other client projects are interested in contributing to the server, you can always feel free to contribute. Just because your project is on Android doesn't mean you only have to do Android, right? If you have a lot of people on Android, you can always try to contribute to the other projects too, because in the end, we want the Open Event project as a whole to succeed, right? We don't want only the Android app to succeed. If the server doesn't work, Android app isn't going to work, right? So, you know, try to work as a team, work with everybody, talk to everybody. And once GSoC starts, like old GSoC students would know this, we will have something called as scrums. So scrums are basically where this is not the actual Scrum by Agile definition. So in FOSSASIA, Scrum is where you post what you have been working on and what you are working on right now and what you will be working on and if you're facing any blockers. So this is where you will have a good idea of what other students are working on. Like, for example, if you are working on something on Android and something related to your ticket doesn't work on the server, then you need to put that as a blocker so that people from the server can also look at your scrums and have an idea that, okay, this is not working, so I should take up this ticket and fix this on priority. Yeah, so there was a question, Scrum in the mailing list. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. So yeah, always look at the other projects too. Don't just, for horses, we restrict their vision, right, by putting something on their head. So we don't want something like that for students here. We want the students to have a wide idea about everything that is going on in a project. Okay, so don't restrict yourself. Nobody's going to blame you for looking something in the server. Yeah,
I think this is a very important point. Don't restrict yourself. Also, to the fact that we have like different, or like let's say Android or other subcomponents or clients, for example. So my question to you is, how do we deal with this? For example, in the past, we've sometimes seen, oh yeah, my project is on the front end, and something is not implemented yet in the server, so I can't continue. I can't get it done. So we have this component approach. Before we had an approach where we had like the front end and back end in one system, and it was kind of everyone was responsible to make it work, both the front end and on back end. But now it's like difficult sometimes to manage this, as we also don't have like let's say for every component we don't have 10 people who focus just on one component. So I think we need the students to understand that they have to bridge across the clients and across the server in their daily work. Would you agree with that? And how should we deal with it? We actually need people to also work on the server and implement more APIs. Otherwise, how can we manage that, like things implemented in the front end or in the Android client work in the back end? So what's your idea on that?
Okay, so I'll start with this. So one of the things that I feel is, like, firstly, we do have a standard, the JSON API standard that we are following. So that really helps in keeping a standard format for all the clients that you are building. So it's not like the JSON object that you will be getting is different for different endpoints. That is standardized. Now, secondly, coming to the thing, so there is always a problem like, okay, in front end I want this, but in server this isn't working. Or sometimes it's like the server, we have already implemented this, but it's not implemented in the front end, so it's not working. So there's always this miscommunication between the front end and the back end guys. It almost always happens. So one of the things that I was planning this year was, like, at least a month, if possible a week, we will be holding a meeting where there will be both the front end and the back end guys working, and everyone will be giving a stand up about what they have done, what is the current status, and why they are blocked, like what is actually blocking them from implementing that part of the project. So if it's a server thing that is blocking a front-end guy to implement a particular feature, then we can actually ask this, we can solve that in the meeting itself. Okay, this needs to be implemented, this we can discuss how it needs to be implemented, what is actually suitable for the front-end guy, how it can be implemented in the back-end, and then we get it sorted out. Most of the time what happens is we just say, okay, this endpoint doesn't work, I don't care because it doesn't work, so it won't be implemented. Actually, it's the responsibility of both the back-end and the front-end guy. If it's not working from your front-end, you need to communicate it well to the backend people so that they can implement. Similarly, in backend, you should tell and inform the front-end clients, whether it be Android or it be server. Even if you're changing a component, you need to convey the message to all the front-end client teams that, yeah, this is something we have changed. So make sure that this has been changed on your side as well, so that this doesn't break the code. So I think this kind of like staying in the same page for all the projects is a very important thing, which is why I feel having a stand-up meeting, because maybe sometimes it's not always possible for everyone to go through all the scrums that are there. So it's better if we have a stand-up meeting every month at least, or a week if possible, so that we can discuss whatever everyone is coming up and what is blocking them. So I think that really sorts out a lot of the problems. Niranjan?
Yep, I completely agree with you. We should be doing a stand-up meeting. That'll actually help students align better.
So one of the questions that I see, one second. Yep. One of the questions that I saw was there in a GitHub issue as well, and someone has posted it on live chat as well, is like, are we thinking of implementing GraphQL? What, like, whether it would be a better approach to switch to a GraphQL based approach rather than a REST API approach. So Niranjan, you want to talk about it?
So yeah, GraphQL is completely not out of question, that is something we should consider, because especially with a project like OpenEvent, where we have a lot of lot of data sets, each are interrelated with each other, like a user may be related to event in multiple ways. And in such, it's not actually very straightforward to get the relationships in our API. Like, I mean, you can get a relationship, but then that would mean a lot of work on the front end, as in you'll have to the path will increase, and then you'll have to specify the relationships in the JSON API format, and then you get everything. But then GraphQL allows us to retrieve it in a very easy manner, right? If anybody has worked with GraphQL, you would, like for example, if you use the Facebook's API, so Facebook uses GraphQL for their API. So yeah, it is in the plans, but we will not be concentrating on that, at least at the start of just this GSoC. So this GSoC, we want the new server and the front-end project to come to the same level as the legacy server or more, as in we want all the basic features to be implemented and working properly. That's the primary goal. And once that is done, we can think about GraphQL. But yeah, but it is something we should consider. I'm not ruling it out at all. And one more question that I saw was, are we planning to move away from Python to Node.js? No, we are not, because I don't see why we should move. I mean, yeah, if the Node.js bandwagon is very big and everybody wants to like, hey, Node.js, let's go build the server in Node.js. But I really do not see a valid reason why we should move a server which is already written in Python and working in Python to a Node.js backend. So no, we are not moving. We are not planning to move the server stack to Node.js. I think Saptak would agree with this.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with the point that we are currently not moving from Python to Node.js. Same reason as Niranjan said, that we actually don't have any reason to move to Node.js right now. Python works pretty well for us. We have all the solutions right now, as well as we have not only just the server, but there are all the other components like Celery and Redis, and everything is set up in a way so that it perfectly works with Python right now. So Node.js just doesn't mean writing the entire server again in Node.js. It means coming up with all the infrastructural part as well. So I think that's one of the points. But then again, the idea behind decoupling, one of the advantages of decoupling is always that, say like 2 years or 1 year from now, we come up with maybe not Node.js, but we feel that Flask is not scalable enough and maybe we should use Django. So we can actually do it without having to trouble the front end. So that is why what we really need right now is having a complete closure of the server as well as the front end side, so that we can deploy it, we can use that. And then if we feel sometime that this module can be actually moved to something like, say, maybe we feel that maybe not the entire REST API needs to be moved, but maybe we can move some components to GraphQL, which really enhances our performance. So we can do that just by changing a little bit in the backend code. So that's why we are looking into something so that we have a complete closure of the backend done and complete closure of the front end part done, and also the Android applications and stuff, so that we have a clear idea that next time if we rewrite a particular model, we know it has to exactly do this thing, because we will then have it into production. Also, great thing is this year, from this year, we have few people who can actually help us with usability testing. So I think Mario can talk a little bit more about it. So usability testing always helps us get a better idea, like what are the things which are actually not working when a user uses it. And we need to first focus on completing those things so that it actually perfectly works. We can launch a beta version or a production version, and then we can think about maybe this stuff can be modified in a better way, or this can be optimized in a better way. Mario?
Yes, so I see that we're talking a lot about the server, and so the server is the core of our system. Where people enter the events in the front end, they enter the ticketing information and everything, but we store it in the server, and we access the server through the different clients. So now in GSoC, I see though that we didn't get most applications for the server. We get like most applications for the Android app or for components. Often these applications are related to the server, and there is an overlap with some work that needs to be done on the server. But I want to ask you now, actually we haven't finalized the students that we will accept in this GSoC. So there is this open question that actually we need students to help us to make the server run, right? I mean, like as we discussed this year. So what are your ideas now? How should we proceed here? Because also like Google has this new policy that they want students not to direct too much from their project, or if the project is changed, it should be really like in alignment with the student and the mentor organization. And we had in the past some students who first accepted a change of their projects, but later on complained to Google, right? So this was a bit of an issue here. And I'm not 100% clear how we should handle that, but we actually, I see that we cannot accept all the Android applications the way they are, because they're just overlapping a lot. I think we could like seriously talk about making the Android app into a general app, more like what Eventbrite, for example, has, where you can see all your events, all your ticketing. I mean, now we have the new API structure. We could actually have much more features in the Android app. So it could be a chance that to have a general Android app, because people don't want to install a new app all the time. They're not using so many apps. So maybe the app for specific events is over, but there could be an app, for example, like when you bought a ticket for an event, you could use that app. So maybe making the Android app more into a general app. So these are a few ideas, but again, I'm coming from with that question now. We have all these applications, and we actually need to get things done on the server. Otherwise, like we can't implement these features or can't make these features run in the clients. So what should we do now with these applications? How can we talk to the students that actually like we need a lot of help, and everyone needs to understand the ecosystem very well and make it run? So what are your ideas? How should we handle that? I don't know. Shubham or Abhinav, if you have any input, please also feel free to jump in.
Okay, so one thing I would say is one of the things that we can really look into is like many of the people see, and as far as I have seen the applications, is some of the features you are like, okay, I'll build this into Android. So it actually doesn't end when you completely built it into Android application and then you are like, okay, the server doesn't work, so it is not working, but then I have built it in the Android application. So I think some of the people can actually, what they can do is not just build the Android application, but rather focus on integration of the Android application with the server project. So that way they are not just working in the Android application, but they are also working in the server project. How they're working in the server project, they don't necessarily maybe need to like write Python code, but they can review the Python codes that we are writing in server, or maybe they can also put issues so that and see that the issue gets solved, so that the integration of the Android application gets completed. Same goes with the front end. When we see a web app application, so similarly we can do is like someone creates a web app feature, which is fine, but then it's not integrated with the server side. So some people can actually completely focus themselves into the integration of the two components, so that the two components can be well integrated and everything works fine. That way, actually, you are not completely deviating from the project, but you are also, see, the idea here is like just making something in the front end doesn't work, because we need the data from the back end after all. So your idea should always be for integration of these stuffs, and then we need to focus in the server as well. So I think some people actually can really focus there. So
Saptak,
yeah.
I think like your microphone is touching something or something. It's getting a bit bumpy at some points, but I think I understand your idea. But I would like to know, are the mentors aligned in that point, like that we actually need to like have input from different people, and we need to define this as a requirement, that it's not just an Android app or it's not just a front end. Actually, we need to ensure that things work. I mean, like, don't lean back and say, oh yeah, like I did it, I put up this button, but this button can't call the API because this part of the API doesn't work yet. So actually, the goal in an open source project is to make things work, right? And so how should we deal with it? Do you agree with Saptak, Niranjan?
Yep, of course.
So how would you describe it? How would you say it?
Mario, I think I lost you back there.
I mean, like when we say like we need people to involve in different apps, how would you describe that? How would you engage that?
Mario, you're breaking up.
I'm breaking up. Okay, so maybe just refer to what Saptak said. What's your feedback on that?
Okay, so like Saptak said, it is important like for everybody to work with each other. Basically, what Saptak said was an extension. Saptak added a lot to what I said, but then the core idea of it is the same. Work as a team and don't just stick to your project. Okay, but that does not. So again, Mario's original question comes here. Like, what if you had proposed something and there is a lot of overlap. Like Mario said, for Android project, there was a lot of overlap. So that is something that is unavoidable, right? Everybody, when a lot of people apply for the same project, like for example, if you take our Open Event project, there are a set of features that we need, and everybody knows that. So a lot of people would have proposed that similar issues, right? Like a rating system or something. So overlap is unavoidable. So when the proposals are selected and we start talking to all of the students who get selected, there is a good chance that you would be requested to, or we would suggest a different what do you call it? A different, slightly different proposal or a different line of thought for your proposal. So I think that's unavoidable, and that's how it is going to be. But that shouldn't be an issue, or I don't think why it should be an issue, because when I did GSoC, my proposal wasn't the same thing I worked on, because it overlapped with other people, and it actually turned out pretty good for me. So yeah. Are there plans to start a new iOS application for the Open Event project? There are plans. We do have a repository, but the issue with iOS is contributors and mentors. We don't have a lot of iOS contributors here. If we do, then it's fine. We can have an iOS project. Mario, what do you think?
Yes, absolutely agree. I think the contributors, this is a challenge, and I think like the web app works on iOS, so that's good. If we have more interest in iOS, we can go further with it. And we have a few people, but much less than on other projects. And it's difficult to get like Linux people or some people like that, as they don't have access to iOS and to Mac. So this is a question here that's always open with iOS. But so yeah, I see that you guys actually look also through the questions that we're getting in more and more from the students, and also answer them during your during our conversation. Maybe let's see if we have some more questions, to go through them. Okay, let me just like point out a few. Here's this question. Should we add a survey feature which provides the organizers a feedback for the event? This feature would become a part of the Badgeyay dashboard.
Okay, so right now we actually do have an endpoint in the API server which actually is supposed to be a feedback API for individual events, but that's not implemented in the front end, and I think it's not completely thought of in the server as well. So that is one of the features that, like, I would say, apart from fixing all the bugs that are there right now, that is one of the primary features that we have thought about to have in the event ecosystem. So I think, yeah, we will be moving to that, and we will be having that in the part of dashboards. One of the things that I came across in one of the questions is like, if we are thinking of moving to robot testings, and because like we have headless chromes and stuff like that, absolutely, we think that we actually, in the server part of OpenEvent, we had Dread, so that we can ensure that whenever a new server endpoint is implemented, we do have a documentation part of it, and while writing the documentation, we actually ensure that it actually provides the exact JSON object as it should be. So that kind of helps in doing the unit testing part of it, but we still don't have a complete testing setup for the front end and as well as for the application. So yeah, for front end, we will be thinking about something like robot testing with headless Chrome, and might be trying something like Selenium or stuff, so that we have an integration testing as well apart from unit testing, so we can ensure that there is no breaking change, not only in the logical part of it, but also in the implementation part of it, also in the UI UX part of it. So yeah, we are thinking of making the testings a lot more better than it's already there. What if the targeted issues mentioned in GSoC proposal by any student is resolved by some other student before GSoC? Niranjan, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, this happens, like, but then I don't think any of the big, if you had just put a very small issue in your proposal, then there is a good chance that it might get solved before GSoC. But I don't think, or at least I haven't seen any big proposals or feature proposals that you have put in your proposal getting solved before GSoC. But if it does, then like I said, the same issue, same solution as to what I said for overlapping. We would look for a different idea or a different angle to your proposal. It's not a deal breaker.
Yeah, and this actually comes up every year, not only before GSoC, but during GSoC as well, when people start off, because they're starting off, they have a lot of enthusiasm, and people are like, okay, I'm also doing this issue, I'm also doing this issue. I can tell you one thing is, there is enough issue for all of you. So try to avoid taking the same issues that are already being there. If you see that someone has already claimed an issue, then you ask them whether they're already working on it. If they're already working on it, try and pick up something else. Or if you see that like it has been 10 days and still there's no reply, and they're not even working or sending a pull request, then yeah, feel free to take up that issue. But if you see that someone is already working on it, then try and pick up something else, try some another issue. And I think that actually helps in making the project better, rather than fighting over a single issue and trying to pick that up. Yep. What are the goals of Badgeyay this year? So Mario, you want to talk about that?
Okay, so the goals of Badgeyay. I think we're all very excited about Badgeyay, and it's already has a great feature set right now. You can find it on badgeyay.com. So basically, like I would say, the big things that we learned from the Open Event project is to keep backend and frontend separated, as it gives us more flexibility also for the future development. So we did this with Badgeyay and already have this state right now. So this now gives us a lot of freedom. We want to see the front end developed further and the back end. And I think we can just look at commercial solutions here again. Like Eventbrite, for example, uses conferencebadge.com, and they have login functionality. You can store badges, and recently, actually, you can also like change the badge sizes. So this is something that we would love to see, and there are a lot of test cases that need to be run. For example, some events already try to print out badges, and what we see is like sometimes, like in India, we see very long names. Some people have very long names. Yeah, so this is one thing that we didn't cater for always, and we need to find solutions for that. Also, like maybe have different fonts, have different like have it bold or have it italic or something like that. So looking at features like that to make it end user ready. And as we have the component approach here, what we actually can do is we can allow people who run their events still on Eventbrite, but who want to move to open source step by step, we can allow them to print their badges on Badgeyay as well. Any conference system usually has an API or has an export as a CSV. So this is something we want to see. We want people to be able to download their CSV from Eventbrite, from EventNew, from other solutions, put it into Badgeyay, and then render their badges according to their wishes, with their background, and so on. So that would be very cool if we could integrate with these solutions. And this was also one goal that we always had with Open Event. If you check out Open Event very carefully, you will see that we have export formats for XML, that we have import formats, and so on. So we want to make it easy for people to move from their proprietary solutions to a free and open source software solution, and even to be able to deploy this solution themselves. So good documentation is very important in that way. So I hope that gives you a bit of an overview of Badgeyay, and yeah, possible integration in Open Event. But like, I think for now we are all good. One thing I could think of is also like if I log into Eventbrite and I go to the Badgeyay website, that I can log in with my own credentials and so on. These are really like details that like many people will say, oh, that's easy, I know how to do that. But actually what we've seen in the past, sometimes APIs change, credentials change, and so on. So it's not always that easy to maintain, while it is maybe easy to get this started, right? So things really need to be thought through. But I think like really to have an alternative to conferencebadge.com, and I actually see already a lot of features on our side that we have, and that like proprietary systems like this one don't have. So let's continue in this direction and provide login functionality, provide like storage functionality for badges, so people can come back and work on them later, things like that. Yeah, does this make sense? So from your side, and does this fit into your vision, Saptak?
Yeah, I think that actually fits the vision. And one of the things, the important thing he said is like, this is why actually we try to keep everything modularized. If you go to the GitHub repositories, you will see that we have different repositories separate for all the different purposes. That not only helps in maintainability, but it also helps in integrating it with different other APIs or other features that we want. So say, for example, tomorrow you say, let's just integrate it into Badgeyay, and then we don't have to say use it as a separate website. Yeah, that's not very difficult to do, but the thing is then you can't use it against different other external APIs. So having it as a separate module altogether helps in catering to these needs as well. So I think that really helps. One of the questions that I came across was, should we have a seats endpoint to maintain seating arrangements? So we actually get a lot of these questions, not only here but in GitHub as well, and most of these are basically new feature requests. So we don't like throw them off completely. Yeah, these features are really great to have, but what we really need right now is having the very basic features work first. So once we have the very basic features work first, then we actually did have a plan of implementing this last GSoC, but what we came across was implementing the entire decoupled structure itself took a lot of time. So we are focusing on making that work first and then adding on top of it as a seats endpoint feature. We have seen a lot many proposals this year for this ticketing system and seat enhancement features. So hopefully that if we complete most of the other features before that, we will be working towards that with a really good team. So yeah, we are looking forward to working on that. Niranjan, you want to add to that?
No, you've covered everything. Maybe Abhinav or Shubham might have something.
One thing I'd like to add that this year we'll be focusing more on the microservices part 2. For the web app, you can generate the web app directly from the Evently dashboard. For the Badgeyay project, for example, if you want to generate a badge for the event, that you can do directly from the Evently dashboard. So the teams from the web app will be coordinating with the server project to implement this microservices.
And regarding the question of seating arrangements, I mean, that's really something we want, right? I mean, like this would be awesome. But like seating arrangement, this is not just 2, 3, 4 issues. This is actually a whole big new component. You would like give the ability to people that they can draw their entire conference space or like cinema or like event space, whatever, somehow, and like then assign different categories and different tickets to it. And we really would need to think through like what happens if somebody changes the roster of the tickets, or some tickets are sold out, or like you change the ticket price or the ticket description. I mean, there are a lot of dependencies that could come into place here, and this really needs to be thought through in very much detail. Right now, at this moment, I think it would add a lot of additional, I don't know, overhead, or it would add like additional, like we would need to focus on this, and while we still have to focus actually on the basic parts. So we want version 2 to be to reach the same level as version 1. Basically, a lot of it we have already, but there are a few points here and there and things that need to be tested. So yeah, this is really what we need to focus on. But like if we get more people on board, conference seating is one thing that we want. I think it might start as a separate project, even let's say you can draw the conference seating somewhere, maybe that could be an idea. And we will have the internship program that's coming up soon with FOSSASIA as well, to be released in the next few days with more information. So if people really have a background and have a clear understanding what needs to be done, maybe that could be an option here to go on with this project. But right now, I'm really not sure. I mean, it must be very like clear and concise proposal, because we have to think that through ourselves, right? I mean, like What we did so far with Open Event is we implemented a lot of things that we need at the FOSSASIA Summit. So we knew exactly what we need, but we actually never needed conference seating. So we need to think this through, and we need to talk to people who actually need this in order to make it useful also, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. One other question that I came across was a project server, for example, for implementing a semi-auto issue tracker was proposed. So what are the ideas about it? What are we thinking? Niranjan, you want to talk about that?
So I don't know if you're talking, but we're not hearing you right now. Okay, so Niranjan says, tells us in chat he needs to consider this, and we'll be back in a moment. But I'm not completely clear what the question is about. A project for implementing a semi-auto issue tracker was proposed. Is that like part of Open Event, or how would that fit in? I'm not clear. How would you interpret that?
We actually do have something similar kind of that. So we made that mainly because a lot of this thing was happening that people were opening issues in Open Event Server, which actually were meant for Open Event Frontend. So Niranjan came up with a project last year which can move issues around, or maybe comment in a pull request that, hey, you didn't mention which is the issue number corresponding to the pull request. But that was mostly built because we needed that at that moment, but I'm not sure that whether we are moving forward with it. But right now, I can ensure one thing is that since most of our projects are in GitHub itself, and all the issue tracking also happens in GitHub, so I think if we do come across some kind of project which actually does this, then it will be related to GitHub repositories only and not exactly as a third-party tracker. Niranjan, are you there? You want to add to that?
Yeah, I'm back to you. Just move back. So this is about the issue tracker?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So that issue tracker project, or it wasn't actually an issue tracker. It was just a small assistant for the project maintenance to quickly move around issues. So that just came because I was too lazy to manually close an issue and move it. Yeah, but I don't think we have a project for that now. I'm not sure how necessary it is, I guess. So I'm not sure. Apart from GitHub repositories, there are some places where the front-end developers are notified. Yes, the backend developers could use the Gitter channel to notify, but then that would become very spammy. So I would still say look at the GitHub issues that are open and which are open, and make sure or track what the issues or what APIs you need. And for the server developers, I say open an issue for every thing you're working on and keep the issue updated. If you're facing any problem, comment it on the issue. Tell that, okay, I'm facing a problem and this is the progress I've done. Put all the comments everywhere wherever necessary. Keep the entire team informed. So this part applies to the entire team. So keep each other informed, not just your project, but the other sub-projects too, like the client, the server. Keep everybody informed. That's why we have a Scrum. So yeah, this comes to the student. So this is the student's responsibility to make sure that they let everybody know what they are working on and they know what everybody else is working on, right? Yeah, that's
absolutely. So generally, like about email, there's a blog post about best practices. There are also guidelines for programs which are continuously updated. At the beginning of GSoC, Hong Fook or somebody from the admin team will also contact each student to ensure like we're all aligned on the goals and on the setting of the program. So I think in that respect, we are very well organized. So I don't know, like, so we have like an hour now that we came over it, and I don't see a lot more questions here. Or is there one of the questions you still want to answer here from the chat?
I think we have more or less answered most of the questions that were there. And yeah, I do agree with Niranjan and Mari about the thing about notification and keeping in mind, like informing everyone, staying informed. And I think having, like, that was the idea of having a meeting as well, so that everyone is on the same page. Many times we see that we actually have something solved, but someone else was thinking, oh, I didn't even know that it was solved. So maybe a monthly meeting will also add, like, help in doing that. And keep, like, we also have the blog post where you can see what are the things that people have done. I think we have more or less answered the questions. There aren't any question as such. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see that there are now coming some questions for specific issues or specific features. I think we should go through these questions in the issue tracker, and you should also discuss that with your co-developers in the specific project channel on Jitter. Generally, I think for us, there is not really such a big difference in hierarchy between like developers and new Google Summer of Code students or like even users. I think like as long as people have a good input, and if they have a valid point somewhere, then they are free to put up their ideas and pull request issues or whatever is relevant here. And yeah, please also work together with each other. Mentors aren't available 24 hours a day. So please bear that in mind. And basically, it's a coding project for students. So while we have a lot of mentors who contribute code, Google Summer of Code is specifically for students to contribute code, and mentors might be able to help you if you get stuck, but it's more like helping you with a strategy, helping you to define suitable goals, things like that. And yeah, that as a final hint. Is adding a meetup support? Here I see at the end also an interesting question. Is adding a meetup support a complete sub-project? Meetup kind support, I would say, is something like making groups or reoccurring events, if we want to say like that. So Eventbrite implemented this. They now have reoccurring events where you can say I have an event every week or every 2 weeks or like coming back. So this is actually similar to what Meetup says are groups. So that would be cool. And I think, of course, with Eventbrite and with Open Event, I think the ultimate goal is substitute Eventbrite, substitute meetup.com, give people a real alternative as a hosted solution that, of course, will cost money because like we need to run the server, we need to support developers, but people can also set that up themselves, just like any WordPress, Drupal, or whatever system. And here we have an event system, so that would be cool. Another outlook into what I think we could like also have in the future is, for example, automatic installers for like cPanel, then like, let's say, Debian packages, things like this. These are things that are also cool to have. And if anyone has ideas for this, I would be very happy to see them here in the channel, to see, talk to us and open an issue or just do the project. You don't even need to have access to the FOSSASIA repositories. You can always do it in your own repository and yeah, start something new. So yeah, maybe let's wrap it up. Saptak, Niranjan, what would be your final points?
Okay, so I'm just going to tell something which I've been telling people every year, or at least last year. So this is my usual call finishing statement. So Yeah, so we had this call right now, right? So it was all very, we were all talking about how the students have a lot of responsibilities and everything. Yeah, all that is there and fine and necessary. But apart from that, I want you guys to have fun in GSoC, right? It's so have fun, and if at all you get contributing to GSoC or open source, that's really important, and that it really hurts me to see people who are very interesting and contributing in the weeks before GSoC, and then as soon as the results announced, they're just gone. Like they disappear and they never come back to open source, or at least they don't come back to FOSSASIA. I mean, it's very sad. And some people, there are these other kinds of people who contribute a lot in GSoC, who are actually very good in GSoC, and then after GSoC, they just disappear. Again, you lose a very nice person for, like, open source contributions are some things that it's very different from, I mean, I can't explain why I like open source contributions. Like, I just like it a lot. Many people are like, dude, why are you spending so much time on open source contributions? Nobody pays you. What are you doing? Why are you there? Why are you wasting time? But for me, I find it I find it fun, and it's where it's people really appreciate you a lot more in open source contribution than in a corporate environment. Like I've seen that, or at least I've seen that myself, and I've heard people tell that too. In open source, like a lot of people from all around the world, you get to meet a lot of people, and nobody cares where you're from or what your age is or what your educational qualification is. You do something nice, you will get appreciated for it, and they will think of you as equals to them, and nobody is going to look down upon you just because you don't have a college degree or you have a college degree in a different branch or something. You're still going to be respected, and you're still going to be looked upon if you have a good contribution here. So please never stop contributing to open source. Just because GSoC is over or just because you don't get selected doesn't mean you should stop contributing, okay? And have fun this GSoC, whether you get selected or not. You have like the next 3 months of holidays, right? So irrespective of whether you get selected or not, have fun, contribute to open source. We are never going to say no to contributors. So that's it from me.
Yeah, I think I also completely agree with I think I also completely agree with Niranjan here. Like the main idea of Google Summer of Code isn't just passing the Google Summer of Code and getting a degree, but getting involved with open source. I think that's the idea of Google itself as well, like introducing people to how good open source is, how good upstream contribution is. So every year we do see that people not only just leave Google Summer of like open source completely after Google Summer of Code, but even during Google Summer of Code, people have this tendency to just go above the surface, contribute only to the extent that helps them pass. I would say don't do that to yourself, because you are hurting yourself. Rather try to learn from everyone, give back to the community, try to reach to the depth of the project, think it as your own project, and like add to it as if it was your own project and add value to the project. That way you not only are giving back to the community, but you will see that you will get to learn a lot from others as well. And that's the beauty of open source. Everyone learns from everyone, and you get to make a lot of friends. So like Niranjan said, have fun and keep contributing to open source, whether GSoC or not GSoC, or even after GSoC. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, guys. These were wonderful statements, and I wouldn't know how to put it better. I would like to thank everyone here who has been contributing to the Open Event project here for a long time. I would like to thank the mentors who have been joining this chat here today. We had Shubham, Abhinav, and input on channels here from mentors, and also like Niranjan and Saptak, who gave us these very inspiring final statements. So it also inspires me here to continue always. And thank you very much to everyone for joining this chat on FOSSASIA. As Saptak mentioned, we will have more chats here during the Google Summer of Code, and hopefully see this as a start of more regular interactions on our channels over the next few months. So have a good evening, and see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.